Hey, this is Greg McAfee, and welcome to the Greg McAfee Show. Now let's get started. Hi, this is Greg McAfee, and welcome to the Greg McAfee Show. As always, if you guys have not subscribed to the YouTube or pod channel, feel free to do so right now. We put out this content every week to help you succeed, be better in business, and always sleep better at night. So if you would, click on those notifications right there, and every Tuesday when we put these out, you'll be one of the first to receive it. So today I am honored to have my son, Travis McAfee, with us. And we've been talking about doing one of these, and I'm just glad we got together. And we're going to talk to Travis a little bit about what he's doing right now, and also how he worked growing up in the company at McAfee Heating and Air, and just kind of the stuff we did together and stuff like that. So we're going to get this kicked off. And we're also, the most important thing here, not only do I get the honor of interviewing my son, but we get to learn more about Generation Y and a little bit more about Generation Z, how to motivate them, how to employ them, and how to be more successful with them. So that's some of the takeaways you're going to have from this show. So welcome, Travis.
Thanks for having me. Good to be here.
Yeah, I'm glad you're here. So let's tell the audience a little bit about your history. You're 26 years old, and we're going to talk a lot about you today, but we're also going to learn a lot about basically millennials and how to hire and motivate them. But let's talk a little bit about your history. How old were you when you started working at McAfee Heating and Air?
Well, I think it really started when we built our new building just next door here in 1998. Moved out of the garage, moved into the building for the first time. Little things just needed done. So while you were doing some of the bigger things, you just said, "Hey, I need you to go empty trash cans." And I don't remember if you paid me or not, but that was my first job at McAfee. Then it kind of bumped up to sweeping out the warehouse. Eventually helping some of the guys wash trucks, little things like that. And then I got put in a truck for the first time with one of our service techs who's pretty much been with us for just about since the inception of the company. Chris, I rode with him running a few service calls, carrying his toolbox and whatnot, about 9 years old. So
yeah. Mm-hmm. And you did, I know you did service, you helped Chris with service, and then eventually you started helping out with some air duct cleaning. Mm-hmm. And we got into carpet cleaning for a few years. And the only reason we got out of carpet cleaning, it was very successful, but we had to either lower our prices to compete with some of the big companies, or just maintain that higher price and gradually grow. And after discussing it with our board of advisors, we just decided to sell the carpet cleaning business and stay more focused on what we do. And that's a whole nother class, guys. So anyway, you started with, you actually got into carpet cleaning.
Yeah. We had a gentleman here that pretty much ran our carpet cleaning division. Great guy. But yeah, just riding in the van with him. I think carpet cleaning was probably my favorite thing to do because I was able to be the most involved. It was hard to mess up, so you were going in and cleaning up other people's messes and then making it look better than you found it, and that was relatively easy to do. So I would say probably 10, 11, 12 years old, I was doing carpet cleaning pretty regularly and actually really enjoyed it. So, and
then I know we got you into install, so you kind of became an install helper for a while. The long story is you
worked in fabrication shop.
You worked in sheet metal shop for quite a while.
Off and on. Among other things. Air duct cleaning was another one. It's another one of those that's hard to mess up. So, it's, again, you go in there, leave it cleaner than you found it, make sure the customer's happy. That was another thing I learned pretty early on was customer service. We had a few guys here that were actually extremely good, just being able to really put the customer at ease. And so I learned a lot from them too in dealing with people. So it was more than just the the labor experience. It was also watching others be really good and sometimes not so good with people and learning from that. So it was a great experience.
But I'll tell you what, and I know you enjoyed that. It was extra money. You got to make money and work and have responsibility. And before you drove, I would bring you into work with me, or someone would pick you up or whatever. But then when you started driving, you had to be here for work. But I remember, as time went on, you were also during the summer. Possibly during your college years, and we're going to talk about what you've done in college, but I think we made you a driver, and you took that to heart. I mean, you were like, because everybody was like, deliveries were so much more efficient and all that kind of stuff. And then when you went back to school, you actually said you wanted to help hire the next driver. Do you remember that?
Yeah. Thanks for letting me do that. It didn't work out, just for the record. It was a good experience, trying to interview someone, because like before I started doing that job, it was more or less just like a guy driving in a truck. There was no like planning out the day. There was no, okay, it makes like I have to be, in these 3 different parts of town today. This guy works a little bit faster than this guy, but he's farther, like and he's farther away. So you kind of have to think about who is doing the job, where the job is, what supply houses you have to go to that day, what equipment is needed. And so you basically create your route first thing in the morning, and that was really never done before. So I think it's probably running smoother now even than when I started, but I think I will take credit for kind of kickstarting some of that.
Well, you gave a logistics course. I remember, because you had you put it up on the big screen, and you had applicants they had to figure out how to get from point A to point B the fastest.
Yeah, I gave them a little quiz. Yeah, and it was like I said, great experience. Ended up not working out, but you win some, you lose some. But yeah, the interview itself was pretty cool. I put them through a little test, and I basically gave them a map of Dayton, Ohio, and basically tasks throughout the day. And basically put like stars up I did it on my computer and projected it to the screen, and I just had stars like, okay, you got a job here, 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 and here. Everything I talked about. Here's where your supply houses are. Oh wait, there's this one supply house we never go to, but none of the other ones have the part that we need. So you got to go like a little bit extra out of your way. How you gonna map out your day and still make sure everyone has their metal and parts that they need to get the job done on time? And it was pretty cool. I think it kind of threw the applicants off guard a little bit, but I both of them did well for the most part. So but just getting people to think. You're not just getting in a truck and driving, and also getting the other members of the team, the installers, to realize like, oh, well, this isn't just a guy that gets to sit in a truck all day and drive and listen to music. Like there's if my day is going smoothly, so is theirs. And that's important.
Right. In the systems we have in place at McAfee, we pick up the custom-made metal for the job and deliver it. And at that time, they should have the system tore out, and the driver picks it up, takes it, strips it, takes it to the scrapyard, brings back the aluminum, copper, all that kind of stuff. So it made a big difference. And Travis said, even though it didn't work out, well, the first person he hired for this position, he didn't work out. But that's lesson learned, because that happens a lot in business. So, so be it. All right. So now let's the listeners have heard that you've worked McAfee growing up since you were 5 years old. Thought you were going to work here, and take over the business someday. And then at 9th grade, what happened?
I was really inspired by some football coaches that I had who were also teachers, and just kind of at that point knew that I wanted to be a teacher, coach, mentor in some capacity, and at that time I thought it was to be a classroom teacher and to be a football coach, and so I just decided I'm gonna pursue that route and see what happens, and still on that path, still on that journey. It didn't end up like I thought it would when I was in 9th grade, but it's going well, and still on that trajectory. So
Yeah, so he came to me and said, Dad, are you going to be upset if I don't come into the business? And I said, I don't know. What are you going to do? And he said, I really feel led to teach. And I said, then what did I say?
So then you need to teach.
And be the best teacher you can be.
Right, yeah.
So so at ninth grade, he decided he didn't want to come into the business. And, of course, at ninth grade, sometimes you change your mind 10 times before your 12th grade. But he didn't. He stuck with it. And so you went to, well, first you got a football scholarship, and you played football for a year. And the football coach that recruited you left, and he ran the ball.
Yeah.
And the new football coach didn't run the ball.
Yeah. Yeah, the short version of that is I chose to go to this school because of the coach and because of the offense that they were running, as opposed to finding a school that I liked and enjoyed and would want to be there even if, something happened and I wasn't able to play anymore. So, again, lessons learned, but I ended up not doing that. I ended up leaving after the first semester, as actually did many of us. There was kind of some toxic leadership there, which we can talk about later on in a more broader sense. But a lot of the people that came in my class ended up leaving after the first semester, and we all kind of went our separate ways. I ended up just finishing out freshman year here at Sinclair Community College, which I'll plug. I really am thankful for that experience. It's a good school. They do a lot in the community, training a lot of people for all sorts of jobs, not just academia. So it's a good place to be. But anyway, then ended up at Ohio University. This whole time still pursuing the social studies education route. Did that. Taught junior high. I taught high school first for a little bit, and then ended up teaching junior high for 2 years, social studies, and actually it was at a Catholic school, and out of necessity ended up teaching religion and fell in love with it. Just realized the kids were really hungry for that stuff, but I realized I also had a lot to learn, which led me to pursue studies at Boston College, which is what I'm doing now. So I'm continuing my own learning so that I can be a better teacher in the long run.
So just so everyone knows, you got your bachelor's at Ohio University.
I did.
And then you got a master's at University of Dayton. And you were in a program there where you taught, 7th and 8th graders.
Yeah, that was really great. It was just, it's called Lavon, and it's basically a living community with the University of Dayton. So we were all teachers living together and teaching in various quote-unquote under-resourced schools. And excellent experience, and basically our compensation for because the reason we were there was so that the school could have quality teachers without having to pay a full teacher salary. So it was a way to kind of give a hand up to these under-resourced schools. And so my compensation then was a place to live and my education at UD. So it was good.
And then you applied at several colleges, higher end colleges, such as Boston College, and Boston College made you an offer that you couldn't refuse.
That's true.
And then you got married during COVID, and you didn't have that big wedding you guys planned because of COVID, but you wanted to be married before you moved to Boston. Yeah. So we had a nice little wedding of 10 people.
Yep.
And Tiffany was Travis's sister, my daughter, was number 10,
Yep.
and she played photographer. That's how we got her there.
Yeah.
So anyway, you moved to Boston, and you've got 1 year under your belt at Boston College.
2 more to go.
2 more to go. But what else happened along the way? What you're doing right now? ROTC?
A lot of things.
Yeah.
So, just going back to, I told him that I was considering other things in the 9th grade. But going back even further than that, I remember, at the kindergarten graduations, they make this video montage of all the kids, like, what do you want to be when you grow up? And so, everybody, I think there was some cool answers out of my little kindergarten class. I don't remember it, but we have the tape, so I was able to watch it like years later. But they said, what do you want to be when you grow up, Travis? And I said, a U.S. Marine, because that's what my dad was, so that influence there. But it seriously was. It was something I wanted to do from a young age, considered it, junior, senior year of high school, but ended up having the opportunity to play football. And so went ahead and did that. From frankly thought I missed the boat for the military. But I was actually taking my 6th graders on a field trip to the Air Force Museum here in Dayton, which is also a cool place. I'll plug if you've never been. But just seeing some of the active duty and retired, what do they call them, airmen? Something like that. Yeah, so active and retired airmen and women there at the Air Force Base, and just talking to them, it kind of reignited this interest. It's like, man, I always wanted to do that. And then, COVID hit, and that was kind of a time for reevaluation, I think, for a lot of people. And, I started doing some research and realized that they're not mutually exclusive. I can pursue what I've been pursuing and still, take the scenic route, so to speak, and do ROTC as a graduate student at Boston College. So I'm doing Army ROTC there. I head off to what's called basic camp. So it's about a month-long training at Fort Knox in Kentucky. I leave Monday morning. So
yeah, and today's Saturday, the 3rd. So he leaves the 5th, and it's basically like an officer candidate class per se.
ROTC is just officer candidate school extended over 4 years, basically.
Yeah. So you're going to spend 30 days or so.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, proud of you for doing that, and then you plan on serving, like I think you might have said this, but you plan on serving 3 years active.
Yeah, for now, that's the game plan.
And then come out and pursue your PhD with a GI Bill.
And then I'll be done.
And then you'll be done.
And then I can go teach and mentor and do what I've always wanted to do.
So he's got 7 years of college under his belt, and that's 7 years more than me. Okay, so but proud of you, and you've stuck with it, and hopefully you'll be a professor someday if that's where God leads you, and we'll go from there. But I also want to say, let's knowing a little history about you, and then what we want to talk about today is the experience you've had with the Generation Y, which is what you are, and then Tiffany being 17, she's Generation Z. Mm-hmm. We're going to talk a little bit about that because you've taught those kids. Mm-hmm. So today, as you're talking to a lot of business owners who own small businesses, and small businesses could be 3 people, or it could be up to 1,500 people or so. Small businesses have a weird definition because I would never thought a 1,500 person company would be a small business, but it is. Anyway, so we want to talk a little bit about what do the Generation X that we hire, and Generation X could be what, 20
about Generation Y?
Generation Y, rather. Why? Yeah, I keep calling it Generation X. So Travis is Generation Y.
Millennials, the dreaded millennials.
Yeah. And so we're talking about those, and at 26 years of age, let's talk about, first of all, hiring them. What could we do differently interviewing them and hiring one of them versus someone, my age?
Well, what do you think companies are doing now? Like, what do you think the current practice is? Like, what's your hiring practice, generally speaking, and why do you think it needs to be adapted, first off, and then I'll answer your question.
Well, I mean, for the most part, people put an ad out somewhere, whether it's on Indeed or whether it's in a newspaper or whether it's online or whether it's on Facebook or whatever, social media, and we're trying to attract someone who is either right out of trade school or experienced, or in some cases today we train. If they're mechanically inclined, we will train them and send them to school. So, I guess we just need to know what could we do better to attract a Generation Y person to a trade? Because that's what we all know, that they would rather go to college, or they are pushed into college. A lot of times they don't choose. It's demanded you go to college for 4 years. Mm-hmm. So how do we get more Generation Y millennials into the trade, you think?
Yeah. So I think that's a good thing to mention, is that a lot of people at least think, or have been pushed that they need to go to college. And I know it may sound a little funny that we just sat here talking about all the college that I've done and am doing and will do in order to pursue my goals. But that's not for everybody. And frankly, if it wasn't necessary, I wouldn't be doing it. But it is necessary for what I want to do in the long run, and so I'm doing it.
Mm-hmm.
But it isn't for everyone. And someone asked me the other day, are you going to, like, are you going to make your kids go to college? And I said, absolutely not. There's a lot of other options. It really just depends on what they want to do. It depends on their personality, their maturity. Some people may need to go to college, but frankly, they need to take a gap year and go live on their own, and do something. Actually have to pay some bills for a little bit, and then go to college and reevaluate, and then have a better sense of what you're trying to do, a better sense of purpose. I think that's the big thing. So my main answer to your question is, how do you attract people? Show them that what they're doing is purposeful. Show them that what they're doing, that your industry, not just your industry, but even your place of business, is contributing to the greater good of your community, because everybody's kind of, I don't want to say everybody, but many of us are kind of striving for this purpose. We don't exactly know what it is yet. And we could talk all day about why that is. What is this plague of purposelessness that's hitting the world? But nonetheless, it exists, and everybody they truly desire to make a difference. They were told as a kid, like, you can do whatever you want, you can make a difference, you can do this, that, and the other, and so they actually internalize that. I think most of us did, and genuinely desire to have purpose and to make a difference. And so, how can you and I were talking about this a little bit earlier, but is anyone going to notice if they're not at work that day? Is anyone is it going to affect the company negatively if they're gone? Is it going to affect the company positively when they're there? Like, they want to know that they're a part of something. They're not just showing it. It's not about, money's important, but it's not about the paycheck as much as it is, am I doing something today that's making my life and or somebody else's life better? Whatever that job is, whatever that industry is. And I know we're painting, we're talking about a whole generation here, so we're painting with a broad brush, but nonetheless, I think everybody's just striving for purpose. And how can you make your company, your industry attractive and purpose filled, for these younger kids that just want to do good in the world,
Yes. So, if I coach a lot of different companies, and a lot of people do things differently, and I always say, whatever drives you, that's what you should continue to do within your company. So, in other words, community effort, community support, whatever drives you, that's what you should lead on. And for us, it was always children. It was always indoor air quality, breathing better, because that's what we do. We're in the indoor air quality business. So we help a lot of kids with asthma and COPD and allergies and all that kind of stuff. And we have for years. We started our own foundation in 2006. So, how do those types of things, getting involved in different charities and stuff, what does that do for a Generation Y?
Yeah, I mean, that's big. That definitely contributes to that, at least attempts to contribute to that greater purpose. Sorry, I was also kind of just thinking about a question I was going to ask. What is it about heating and air conditioning that contributes to the greater good? Because humans lived without air conditioning for a very long time, and I think a lot of people just look at the trade as, I don't know. I think a lot of people have this negative stereotype of just like
trades.
The plumber's crack, more or less. And so they're like, well, I want to do something that stimulates me intellectually, that stimulates me physically, that allows me to contribute to my community, like you talked about. Like, why in the world is heating and air or plumbing so important to the community? I think, my generation, since we're talking about them, we've pretty much grown up with a lot of these things that we take for granted. Whereas when they were first invented, it's like, wow, like, this is actually making people's lives a lot easier, and we're able to populate more, we're able to expand more, we're able to grow as a human race. And so, like, it is objectively good, but I think that's been miscommunicated down the line, and now like it's just considered, well, that's what you do if nothing else works out, and that couldn't be further from the case.
Exactly.
You know.
So, yeah. So what Travis is saying is the kids that go into trades, the stereotype is I'll go into trades if nothing else works out.
Yeah, and it shouldn't.
It shouldn't be that way at all.
Yeah.
You know what we need to do better as business owners is promote and toward that age group of just how high tech we are, and all this smart stuff we have, and all this stuff that helps people live better, live easier.
Yeah.
And so definitely it helps having working and helping the community and doing charity events and all the kind of stuff we do. But that really won't keep someone here as much as letting them know they have a purpose.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, a lot of, during COVID, I noticed advertising more probably than I had in a long time. And the city, one of the particular stands out to me is like the city of Baltimore. Like they had all these advertisements like trying to get people to move there, right? Like it doesn't exactly have an amazing reputation, and economically speaking, it's not exactly thriving. But they're trying to show it in the best light possible and attract young people to move there for various reasons. And there was also in particular like ads to join the police, and I find that extremely interesting. I mean, that you want to talk about an uphill battle trying to get people to be a part of something. The police, they've probably got it worse than anybody right now. So I mean, and it got my attention. Just they made it look attractive. They made it look as though like, hey, like people say we have problems in the police industry. Well, wake up, look in the mirror. Are you the type of person, like, do you think you could do it better? Well, here's a challenge. Come to Baltimore, join our police department. Like, just like little things like that. So like pose a challenge, provide a problem, a solution, a purpose, and so like, how can you use that same philosophy in the trades? How can you get on YouTube, make some ads and say, hey, look at all your friends with $120,000 of student debt. Do you want that? Look at your older brother. Look at your older sister. They went to college. How's that working out for them?
Right.
Nothing wrong with college. I'm obviously pro that too. But if you just go with no purpose, you're going to end up in a lot of debt and you're going to be miserable. And so, how do you advertise and how do you present that to young people and say, hey, this isn't just an alternative. It's a really good route to go. It's not a backup plan. It could be plan A if you want it to be. And you could do really well. And so, yeah.
Right. Yeah, that's good. And they need, would you agree that Generation Y need a little bit more gratification because of the instant gratification world we live in? So do they need a little bit more praise? Do they need a little bit more something?
Yeah, when you put it that way, it sounds like really soft. Like, oh, they need coddled. I think it's more so feedback because we are used to instant gratification, but we're also used to instant feedback because things happen fast. I mean, we could, we get our grades back instantly on quizzes because we do it online. It grades it immediately. You get your grade back immediately. You get instant feedback. You play video games. There's no, like, some games don't even have loading screens anymore. You don't have to wait. You get instant feedback. And so I think if we put it in that light, because if you say, well, they need. It the way you said it, and I'm not criticizing, but like the way you said it.
Well, that's the way we say it as business owners, so we need to know this.
Yeah, so it sounds like you're coddling and like pandering, but no, we just want quick feedback. So that's what we're used to. If we did a job well done, say, hey, that was really awesome. Maybe here's what I'd like to see next time because like I'm beginning to trust you and trust your work. Here's what I want to see next time. Keep up the good work. Or hey, actually, that the way you did that may have worked, but maybe we can tweak it a little bit to maybe match our company culture a little bit better here and there. So like, just be quick on your feedback, positive or negative.
So going back, just so we don't miss anything, where's the best place to find someone your age or younger to attract them to our trade?
YouTube, Instagram.
Okay.
I think those are the big two.
And I think you said, and we're probably going to talk about this, so I don't want to steal your thunder as we shared some ideas this morning. I think you said it's very important for companies to stay up with technology.
Yeah.
So if they're not on YouTube and they're not on Instagram, what is that saying?
That's saying that you're not listening. you're not observing the world, and that's problematic. Because if you're not, I mean, that's pretty simple. Like I think everybody uses YouTube nowadays in some capacity. Yeah, it's not a good look. It means that you're not paying attention to the world around you, and so why would you pay attention to me as an employee?
Boy, that's good. Well said. So when we go back to that instant gratification, didn't you say something about Generation Z? How did they want to call 911?
Yes, I forget what we were talking about, but somebody the other day was telling me that they had a student that tried to text 911. Luckily, they're okay, but just in the situation they were in, they wanted to text 911.
So, but they grew up texting.
Yeah.
I mean, they grew up texting. I mean, we can sit around and compare because I talk about this all the time about we serve 5 generations. From the greatest generation ever, there are people in their late 80s that still own homes. We service their homes. And then you got the baby boomers, and you got the Generation X, you got the Generation Y, and then you got some of the Z coming in that are starting to buy homes. So that's 5 different generations. You know, for the later baby boomers and the greatest generation ever, I mean, when you used to go to a bank, they didn't have drive-through. You had to go into the bank. And then they got drive-throughs. And now you don't even have to go to the bank because you had a check. I'm just going to cash it here. I don't have to go to the bank.
You just asked me yesterday, did you go to the bank? I'm like, no, I'm just going to do it on my phone.
Yeah. So you're just it's quick. We talked about quick, give good responses, feedback fast. We also you're just used to quick things.
Yeah.
Here this kid's texting 911 because that's all he grew up with. But I also want to talk about, you mentioned also we can't put all Generation Y in one box and go, oh, they're all babies, they're all millennials, right? Yeah. And it has a lot to do with how you were raised.
It does, yeah.
And I mean, some of your friends, first of all, even at a young age, some of your friends were getting, when the iPhone first came out or when the fancier phones, what were they called? The BlackBerry phones came out and all that stuff. Some of your friends had those. What did you have?
I had a virtually indestructible like Motorola yellow and black flip phone.
Construction phone.
Yeah, with like numbers like this big.
And the only reason we got you that was for emergencies.
Yeah, it only actually it was Nextel. You remember the Nextel? You could walkie-talkie like anywhere. That was cool. So it was mostly used as my walkie-talkie for mom and dad, and that was about it.
Yeah. So when you go to camps and stuff, we would, if you needed us, you could text us. Yeah. But a lot of your friends had the fancier stuff. They were given the fancier stuff. When you started in high school, how did you get a car?
Basically I bought mom's car.
Yeah. So I'm sure we gave you a good deal, but you had to save your own money and you had to pay for that car. How'd you buy your own gas?
I worked.
Yeah. While other kids didn't. I remember you telling me somebody got like a new BMW once or a brand new GT 500 Mustang. Not always the best choice for a child.
Yeah, I mean, and I'm not going to name any names, obviously, but if you can see how that turned out. The fruits of that have.
How's that working for you?
Yeah. Not everybody. Some of them are still. They ended up being pretty good people, but other ones, it just got a little reckless. What do you expect? If you gave, you guys sold me a Chevy Impala with a V6. If you would have gave me a new Mustang, I probably would have gotten in some trouble too.
Exactly.
So the boundaries are good.
Yeah, and so far from perfect parents, but it was very important for us to give you responsibility. It was your responsibility. And sometimes you would mow the yard twice so you could get paid to have gas or to go out.
Definitely needed it sometimes. Sometimes I just did it to do it.
But so I remember, and you worked at McAfee and you did scrap and you did a lot of different stuff.
Yeah, scrap was huge.
To make money.
Well, that's the difference though. Like, it's all providing. But instead of just providing me things, you provided me opportunity, and you gave me the autonomy. Like, I mean, I admit, you gave me the autonomy to make the money and save the money. Sometimes I didn't save the money. Sometimes I made really poor economical decisions, and I learned from those. And I've since gotten much better at handling, saving, and investing money. Whereas in the beginning, it was just, you gave me the opportunity to work, but I was like, I worked for this. I'm going to blow it, and that didn't work out, and you learn. But,
Right.
you always gave me the opportunity to, to work and understand the value of a dollar, and, it just got better over time, matured and, learned how to handle the money and appreciate the money a little more.
Good. And that's how you learn. If I would have given you everything and not let you fail, you would have never learned what you've learned so far.
Right.
Okay, so
I want to clarify one thing before we move too far forward. When we were talking about the instant feedback, that doesn't mean constant feedback. There's a big difference. So you don't want to be nobody likes a helicopter parent, nobody likes a helicopter boss. But when feedback is needed, discern that, you be prudent about, how often you're giving feedback, but don't be afraid to give it. Be eager to give it and give it quick. Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah.
That's good to know.
Yeah.
All right, so let's move on. One more subject here, and then we'll two more. We're going to talk about a little bit about Generation Z, what you know about that, and then we're going to talk about a little bit about your experience of leadership, being led by bosses or coaches, and then we'll wrap it up here. So the Generation Z, you taught some sixth, seventh, and eighth graders. So, and you have a sister who's 17. Knowing a little bit about them, what would you say about them? Maybe positive, negative.
The positive, what's interesting is that actually this, from what I understand, this generation is since we've been studying the progression of generations, this is the first generation to be more traditional and conservative than their parents' generation, which is really interesting. It doesn't take a genius to figure that out. If you look at who's having kids, it's the more traditional families right now. And so, as a result of that, this upcoming generation is having some good roots and some, positive morality and values, even American values, which, contrary to popular belief still exist, And, so I say all of that to say that, there's a lot of good things to be said, a lot of things to look forward to with this generation. However, from just the things going on in the world around them, they're being perpetually influenced by the world of TikTok and Instagram, and that can be a really wholesome environment sometimes, but it could also most of the time be a really negative environment and some negative influences. So parents out there, be mindful of that, especially TikTok. It's pretty much owned by the Communist Party of China. But anywho, that's a story for another day. But yeah, they're being bombarded by some negative influences, but they're all looking for positive role models. So how can you, as a team, you as a leader at the top, how can you be, it's basically like let it be trickled down. You have to be an extremely important leader, and that, like, I'll use McAfee for example. That has to trickle down to your leadership team, and then that trickles down to lower level managers, and then that the guys in the trucks or the guys and gals sitting at the desk in the customer service room. It all trickles down. It all starts at the top, and so, but everybody's looking for a role model. Everyone's looking for someone. I think this goes for both Y and Z generations. We're looking for people that are wise. We're looking for people that are, exemplify virtue, not just in the workplace, but in their personal life. And, how do you create an environment? How do you create a company culture that promotes virtue? Because if you do that, everybody wins. There's no downside to promoting virtue in your workplace. And so I don't know if I answered your question or not, but, they definitely are looking for attention, and they're yearning for positive influence because they get influence all the time, and they're yearning for something wholesome. I truly do believe that. And so how do you bring that? I feel I don't want to put too much on people's shoulders, because individuals have choices and they're going to make decisions, and it's not on you as a leader. necessarily, but do the best you can to be the best and most virtuous leader that you can be, and that will trickle down. And that's what people are looking for. They want to wake up and go to work at a place that's going to make them a better person, kind of like what we were talking about earlier. It all comes back to purpose. It's you don't want people that are coming in to clock in and clock out. And if you don't want that, create a culture that recognizes what we do every day matters. And by you being here, you also matter. And, it's just, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like it's, you have to create a culture where people feel like they matter. And if they're not there, people notice, and not just notice, but like miss them being there, and that sounds all kind of hippie, but whatever, you really have to create an environment where people want to get up and come to work every day. And if they don't, people can't wait for them to get back. Everybody wants to feel validated and appreciated and feel like they're pursuing purpose and the greater good, So.
And what I've learned the hard way is because I'm motivated rather by making money, and I love sales, and every salesperson I know is motivated by making money, but not every Generation Y and Generation Z are motivated by making money. What are they motivated by?
I think it's because they've seen. I mean, we have news at our fingertips whenever we want, and you hit the refresh button. It's constant. Like we're constantly being updated with what's going on in the world. At least we should be. Some people just watch got videos and whatnot, but we have access to a lot of information, and because of that, we've seen a lot of corruption. And so there's a misconception that the root of all evil is money. It's not. It's the love of money, and frankly, the love of money in the past few decades and then the previous generation has led to a lot of corruption, and that's a huge turnoff. And so a lot of people, honestly, they're not interested in that because they see it as a huge burden on not just them, but on society to just pursue money. So for them, they really just want to be comfortable, I think. And, again, we're painting with a broad brush, don't forget that. But I think people really just want to be comfortable. They want to be able to make enough to enjoy some of the finer things in life, to be able to travel, to be able to spend time with family, have flexibility. That's huge. It's not about the paycheck as much anymore. I think because my generation and the one behind me, more than anyone, has been able to see just how much the love of money can corrupt. And so it's kind of a turnoff.
Well, and they've been blinded by or brainwashed, I say, by capitalism is evil.
Yeah. I think that's the thing. Not having the proper understanding of economics, and just like I said, I think what I said is true. Like we've noticed that the love of money has created a lot of problems and led to a lot of corruption and human suffering, and that gets correlated with capitalism. And so
right.
Anything can be turned into something ugly, and but like just to slap a label on it, capitalism is bad. That's problematic, and that has happened. Yeah.
So we need to do our best to, as leaders, as business owners, to show them that we care as much about them as making money. We couldn't stay in business if we didn't make money. We couldn't pay them if we didn't make money.
Yeah.
But we also have to show them that they're important to us. We care about them. We care about their working conditions. You don't have to bring in a union to make our working conditions better. If we care about people, we'll provide safety. We'll provide nice trucks, safe trucks, new tires often when needed, whatever. All those types of things, and even inside a clean, safe working area matters. So let's jump to some of your, give us a couple examples of poor leadership that you've experienced in your short life since you played sports. I don't know what, 5th grade you started playing baseball, somewhere in there. Yeah. And then you played baseball, you played football, you wrestled, track, and now you're into jiu-jitsu. What's it called?
Brazilian jiu-jitsu.
There you go. So anyway, we just keep going here. We don't stop, make mistake, keep going. So anyway, give us a couple examples of good leadership, bad leadership.
Yeah. Well, I guess I'll just start with the coach that made me want to be a teacher and a coach originally and led me on this trajectory that I'm on now. What was good was you always knew what was expected. You never had to wonder because you knew. And it was reiterated. We were reminded. There were standards. I mean, if you had the wrong shade of white socks, you were doing up downs or bear crawls, like it was like little things like that mattered. If you had seriously, like it was there. I have some funny stories about that, but yeah, just wrong color socks, wrong length of socks,
length of hair,
that mattered. Yeah, I showed up one too many times unshaven, and that was a problem too. I was actually listening to Matthew McConaughey's book on the green lights, and he was telling a story about his brother who had long hair, and coach said, "I'm going to cut you from the team if you don't cut that hair." And he's like, "Well, I'm not cutting it." And so his dad's driving him to school, and he says, "Listen, son, like just cut your hair. He's going to cut you from the team." And he looks, "Well, Dad, Jesus had long hair." And his dad was quiet. He thought he won the battle. And so they're driving to school, and Dad drives past school. Hey, what are you doing, Dad? Where are you going? And so they're about 5 miles from school, give or take. And he says, "Well, Jesus walked everywhere too. Have a good day." And so, it's funny. I've got a lot of stories about that. But yeah, you had to have your hair cut a certain way. You had to shave. I mean, this is high school football. It's not the military, but it was treated like it was, and that was actually a good thing for a lot of reasons. There were standards, there were expectations, and everybody knew them. There was never a question. You never had to show up this day and say, "Well, what kind of mood's coach going to be in today?" He was very consistent. He was very, very consistent.
Well, that's a good lesson right there. Consistency and leadership.
Yeah, I mean, if your employees have to wonder, is the boss going to come in hungover today, or is he, what kind of mood's he going to be in? That's a problem. You got to be consistent. You gotta be there for your team. You are nothing. You are only as strong as your weakest link. I mean, that's a cliche, but it's so true. If you're not taking care of the guys at the bottom, maybe not you directly, but if your team that you trust is not taking care of the guys at the bottom, I mean, you're not going to be successful. And so they have to come in every day and know
what's expected.
Yeah, and they have to know what's expected and know what they're going to encounter that day. And so far, you can't control what you're going to encounter outside of the walls of the workplace. But when they show up in the morning and they're prepping their truck, they maybe have a meeting, like a team meeting, maybe have whatever it is, whatever they're expected to do before heading out on the road for the day. What happens inside the walls should be very consistent and predictable, and that's really important.
Yeah, and you should have systems in place. So when they do come in every day, the system is just like this football coach who I know who he is. You knew the system and you adapted to it and you got used to it until you liked the system.
Yeah, nobody liked it at first.
Right.
Nobody, but we all came to appreciate it.
And it also, as an employee, it helps if you'll be consistent. If you're an employee and you're listening to this, you come in every day consistent, because we have some who come in every day and we never know what mood they're going to be in.
Yeah, it's a two-way street.
It's a two-way street. Yeah. We try to have systems so where you come through this door, you know exactly what's expected of you, and there's no surprises, because I don't like surprises. And so we do try for that, and that's very important though, because I've worked for companies there wasn't consistency.
Yeah.
The owner of this company would get here one day at 7:50 and the next day at 8:10. We might get to the job by 9 if we were lucky. It could be 9:15, but consistency matters, so that's good stuff. What else you got?
Well, I guess I could talk about that for a long time. But I think consistent. We hit the nail on the head there. I think, but on the flip side, maybe some not so great leadership experiences. I've got two that come to mind, and they were very similar experiences. So I'll just mesh them into one.
Okay.
But if someone comes to you and says, "Hey, can I have a meeting real quick? Here's where I'm at. Here's the situation I'm having. I want to do this to the best of my ability. I'm really concerned with my performance here. I'm concerned that I'm I want to make you guys look good. Help me make you look good. Give me some feedback here. You know, like, and they literally said, well, I think you're doing fine. And it's like, well, if I thought I was doing fine, I wouldn't be here.
Right.
And so I really need you to, you know, stop. Like, I'll leave. I'll let you think about it for 20 minutes. I'll go run another errand real quick, come back, but I really am looking for some feedback here. And
well, it's that quick feedback again.
if you're not interested in giving feedback, you should probably just be a one-man shop.
Well, that's good. True.
So, you know,
Especially in today's world.
yeah. Seriously, I mean, if you're not interested in, because it's mentorship, it's growth. Like you're not, you know, eventually. I hope your goal, you know, if you're in a trade and you're a business owner, I hope your goal is to be able to be not hands off, but when did you first get out of a van? How many years in?
Yeah. Well, I took off different hats at a time, but probably by the third year, I was out of a service truck.
Yeah. And so eventually your goal should be able to step away from things and become more of the overseer and the mentor and the leader. And
be employed from the neck up.
Yeah. And
Quit touching things.
Exactly. And so like you train and eventually you trust people to be able to do that for you. And so like your goal shouldn't be to be, you know, your employees shouldn't have to worry about you being too busy to talk to, you know, your employees shouldn't have to worry about you being stressed out on a call, you know, like you really need to get to a point where even if you're not always like radical availability is a term that I really like. But you know,
what is it?
Radical availability. You don't have to go overboard with that. You know, like just because someone knocks on your door doesn't mean you have to see them every single time, but just being open and saying, hey, actually right now is not a great time, but what's first thing tomorrow morning look like? I'll tell you what, take a longer lunch break tomorrow. I'll meet you out in the field somewhere, whatever it is.
Right.
Like just radical availability and being able to, and, you know, maybe that's not a super low level guy. Maybe one of your managers or something would ask you to have lunch or something, whatever the case may be, depending on your work culture. But like being able to be available is incredibly important. Nobody wants to go to their, like, it's hard to go to your boss, right? Like there's dynamics there that aren't always comfortable, even if you like your boss. And so to be able to knock on the door and say, hey, like, I'm really concerned about this. I'm concerned, you know, maybe I'm falling behind a little bit. How can I get caught up? You know, like being able to, you know, man up more or less and have that conversation with your boss. Like you can't blow that person off.
Right.
You know, they're not going to be. They probably won't be around very long because if they're assertive enough to approach you, they're also assertive enough to leave and approach somebody else that's going to give them the feedback that they're looking for and like the growth that they're looking for. Because feedback, it's not just, oh, tell me I did good. You know, like tell me when I'm doing great. You know, it's like, I'm actually not sure how I'm doing, and I want to grow. Like feedback is growth, and so, I mean, I've probably said it 100 times in this podcast, so hopefully it hits home. But you know, I think feedback is the biggest thing, and being available to give it. You know?
Yeah, and I think it works both ways the same way because you know. We're not giving business owners, we're probably not giving enough feedback. We're probably not meeting with people often enough. How often do you do your reviews? How often do you give a review without an increase? And then you've got someone we talked about the average job today. It used to be 10 to 12 years, and now it's 3 to 4 years. People stay,
and that's a problem. I don't think people actually want that. I think people actually want to find a place they can sink their teeth into and establish some roots.
But they don't take the time to meet with the owner or the boss or the manager or the operations manager or anyone. They don't take the time and say, hey, if things were a little bit different, I don't want to leave. I want to stay. Mm-hmm. But they don't. The easy way out is just bail, thinking that grass is greener across the street, and it's not long. You're gonna see that grass has a lot of weeds in it, probably more weeds than what you left. Because lack of communication.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think, you're right there. The lack of communication in that context basically means you think you're providing avenues for them to approach you, but you might not be. So you really need to evaluate that. And everything here is a two-way street. It's not just on the employer. It's not just on the managers. It's also on the employees. But there's a reason managers get paid more than just
we have to do our part to get them to talk,
avenues,
communicate, find out what we can do better. A lot of times we're willing to do better. We're willing to learn more about them. We're willing to make changes. They just don't let us know, and they just bail. And you find out, every excuse in the world as to why they left, but it's really never the right one. It's never the true one.
We've talked about the importance of taking the high road, though.
Yes.
And trying to leave on. You don't want to burn bridges,
That's right.
But it happens. I think that's it, though. Is it's everything's a two-way street, but managers and people in leadership positions in general have a greater responsibility, like probably twofold at least, of a responsibility to make those avenues available. And if people don't take advantage of them, you can't force people to take advantage of things, but you can control what you do. And if you're not making the avenues, and if you're not providing availability, if you're not really being conscientious of, it's like training a dog. Like you don't give a dog a treat an hour after he sat. You gotta if you want to reinforce that positive behavior, you have to do it immediately so that they know, oh, this feedback I'm getting was because I absolutely crushed it today on this install, or because I sold a really difficult job that frankly the odds were stacked against me. So be quick. Don't congratulate them when the money comes in necessarily. Like weeks later when you get paid. Do it when it happens. It's extremely motivating. So that's I think being quick.
Well, that's more of instant gratification. If you get praised instantly when it happens instead of next week or tomorrow.
Right.
All right. Wrapping it up here. What else? What else would you like to say? What advice or comments would you like to make before we wrap it up?
I think we covered a lot, and we harped on 2 or 3 really good things over and over, and so hopefully that sinks in. Hopefully that hits home and it can be implemented. Thanks for having me on. Unless you have more questions for me, I'm.
No, I do. I just do want to tell our audience that we've had great relationship, father and son. We've done a lot of cool things, Indian guides, all those types of things, father and son. But somewhere a few years back, Travis sat down with me and was very open with me as a father and a son, and said, there were a couple things that has really been bothering me that you've done, and opened up to me, and he shared them, and we discussed them and worked through them, and it was probably the best thing he could have done. I thought about that. I wish I could have done that with my dad. I wish he would have been open to discuss them and learn from them instead of just thinking I was criticizing him. And we have a great relationship today, and not too many people have a podcast and get to interview their son. So this is great, a great time for me, and I hope it comes out good, and I hope you can there's some things to take away from this, because there is. And you've heard from someone who's 26 years old, who has worked since he was 5 years old, but also worked with a lot of people his age and got to hear things and got to experience a lot of different kinds of leadership that we can learn from. I've got some takeaways as well. But anyway, as always, we want to make you think different. We want to make you sleep better at night, and definitely hiring a younger crowd of people, training them properly, getting them in the trade, keeping them, making them stick in your company is definitely going to do that. So I hope this helps. And as always, have a great day, and we'll see you next time.